I'd like to tell you a little bit more about myself and what my journey to a more natural way of doing things has been. Hopefully, this will help you to understand why I am so passionate about teaching people how to heal themselves when they feel like there's no hope and how to take control of their world. So in late August of 2006, I was finally feeling like I was comfortable in my mom of two skin, as I liked to call it. I had a 3.5-year-old son and a 7-week-old son, which was the ultimate realization of my greatest dream. However, I had a sense of knowing that told me that something wasn't right in my own body. And I had had that feeling for about 2 years. You see, when about 2 years earlier, I had gone to my OBGYN with concerns because I felt like something just wasn't quite right. We'd been trying to get pregnant with our second child for almost a year with no success. And our first son came to us within the very first month of trying to conceive. And I was absolutely sure that it would be that easy the second time around. Well, not so much. I was having a very difficult time tracking my monthly cycles because they were not regular like they had been my entire life. I'd expressed my concerns and my desires to have another child with my doctor, and she concluded that it must just be as simple as that I was not ovulating. So she did what she thought was right and prescribed a low-dose fertility medicine to get my ovulation schedule back on track and to make it possible for us to conceive. Well, I was beyond thrilled when 4 months later I discovered I was indeed finally pregnant. I thought, haha, problem solved. Well, as my pregnancy progressed, I became extremely concerned because I was having regular episodes of abnormal bleeding throughout my entire pregnancy. I always reported it to my OBGYN, and she always reassured me that nothing was wrong, that everything was fine. I had gone unexpectedly into preterm labor with my oldest son, and 6 weeks early, and he was born one very sick little dude. So to keep this from happening again, my doctor put me on bed rest, and feeling very confident that the bleeding that I was experiencing was my body trying to go once again into preterm labor. I trusted her and did exactly as directed. Gratefully, I made it to full term and went to the hospital to deliver. I had a very calm, quiet, and relatively easy delivery. However, shortly after delivery, I began to bleed quite considerably, to the point where I was given a shot to stop the bleeding. But aside from that, it was simply a textbook delivery, bringing forth a very happy and healthy baby boy. We named him Benjamin, as he was the last son. We went home with Benjamin in arm to fall into our new family of 4. I recall feeling much more at ease with Benjamin than I was with Bo. He nursed easier. I had learned the beauty of wearing my baby in a sling. I was far more relaxed, and I knew what to expect from my body. I was really looking forward to that magic third week. I was looking forward to really getting back to normal. Well, that normal didn't come in the third week or the fourth or the fifth or the 6th week. I had called my OBGYN's office several times expressing my concern, and I had expressed how I was not normal, and I was once again reassured that everything was fine. Well, then I knew that things were not fine when I began passing blood-sized clots at 7 weeks postpartum. I demanded to be seen right away, and when I went to my doctor's office, I was treated as if I was just needed a pat on the head. I really think that they just thought that I was suffering from postpartum depression. My doctor relented to my pleading and did an ultrasound where she found what she thought was basically a scab where the placenta had detached, and that is what was causing the clots. So she suggested that I come in the following week for a D&C, which I would do, and it would stop the bleeding entirely. So I agreed and asked if I could please have my 8-week postpartum PAP while I was there that day before I left, because really I was quite irritated, and truthfully, I just didn't want to go back to her office. 4 days later at 5:38 p.m., with a screaming 7-week-old in my arms and a very hungry 3.5-year-old trying to climb up the back of my legs, I received a call from my doctor, and she was her usual chipper but matter-of-fact self, and she said, "Anne, I've just spent about 45 minutes on the phone with a cytologist, and it looks like you have cancer. Wait, what? What do you mean cancer? Cancer of what? She went on to tell me a bunch of details that honestly I couldn't understand, yet alone hear over the voices of my two sons. I was virtually alone in that moment, and it will forever be etched into my brain. I told her that I would need to call her back. I went downstairs and put Benjamin in his bed and closed the door with him screaming his little baby head off. I climbed back upstairs and turned on Bear in the Big Blue House for Bo and went out to my car where it was quiet and I could wrap my brain around making that phone call. I called her back and she recounted the details about how she thought it was going to be no big deal. They'd just do a colon biopsy and it would just be gone. She said it was an unusual type of cancer, but not to worry. She would have noticed had it been there for long. She offered to do the biopsy when I came in to do my DNC in a few days, or she would refer me to an oncologist if I preferred. Well, no surprise, I chose the oncologist. I had to make the phone calls that no one wants to make. I called my mom and my sister so that they could be with me when my husband came home later that night. He knew something was wrong as soon as he walked in the door. We sat in silence that night and contemplated the worst. 3 days later, I was in the GYN oncologist's office with my mom, my sister, my husband, my 2 kids. It was like a party in there. But less than 60 seconds into that manual exam, he told me to prepare for a hysterectomy, that it was serious. He told me I'd have to come back the next day for a biopsy so that the insurance would pay for my hysterectomy. He told me that I would have to stop nursing my tiny son right away. My mom looked at him and asked how my OB had missed it. He plainly said, "I don't know." Went to the hospital for my biopsy, which would be a quick in and out procedure, so they said. It ended up that I bled so bad I had to stay overnight. The tumor on my cervix was huge. He reserved the operating room for my hysterectomy for 2 days later. This was all happening so fast, and every time I went to the doctor's office, the news just kept getting worse. 2 days later, I reported to the OR waiting room, and I nursed my Benjamin one last time. I said my farewells, and I got my kisses, and I went in for life-changing surgery that I hoped would save my life. I woke up in my room and was given the news that I had not actually had a hysterectomy, because my oncologist had found 42 tumors in my lymphatic system, from mid-thigh all the way up to my heart. I was given the diagnosis of stage 4B adenocarcinoma of the cervix. I was also in the coming days told that I would likely not see my Benjamin's first birthday. I was told that my only chance of seeing the next 6 months was to seek aggressive treatment right away. I weighed my options, and I knew that there were natural options for cancer treatment available, but I was a total stranger to that hippie medicine. I didn't think it would be my best option. So 2 weeks later, barely walking upright after my surgery, I reported to the Cancer Treatment Center for my first external beam radiation treatment. I was to receive this treatment 6 days a week for the next 9 weeks. I took my first round of chemo on my 30th birthday. I was sure that it would be my very last birthday. I found myself having these late night pity parties in Benjamin's room. I was not supposed to be within 6 feet of this little man I wished and waited for because I was radioactive. One night, I couldn't stand to be so far away from the only thing that I felt like could soothe my broken heart, and so I scooped him up out of his bed and we rocked. And I looked at his tiny face and I realized that if I kept up with this pity party I was having, if I let this win, he would never remember me. Bo may have some fleeting memories, but nothing solid for sure. In that moment, I felt this wave of rage of a mama bear well up inside of me, and I was now on a mission. This cancer came into my body under the cover of dark. It set up camp and tried to choke me out. Its mission was to steal my son's mother from them. That was not happening. I went on the warpath. I vowed that I was going to, in that moment, I was going to rain down a hell on that disease like it had never seen before. I would clean up the mess naturally when I reached the other side of the battlefield, but for now I was going hardcore. So I took 9 weeks of external beam radiation, which totally wrecked my entire digestive system. I took 3 different chemo drugs, which left me nearly unable to walk because of the nerve damage it had caused in my legs and feet. I had to be very, very careful in the sun because of how sensitive the drugs had made my skin. I felt a bit like a vampire every time I went out into the sun. It just burned me. It hurt so bad. I gained an insane amount of weight because of the steroids they had to put me on so that my poor irradiated hip bones would actually continue to make new blood cells. But it was all for the cause. I welcomed each drip of chemo into my body because I saw each one as one foot soldier marching in to kick some butt. I welcomed the radiation because I saw it as fighter bombers laying down a rain of hell on my enemy. This was the way I saw it. On the day of my would-be hysterectomy, and my sister and her family boarded the plane to move and relocate to Hawaii. It had been in the works since before Benjamin was born, and there was no getting out of it. While I was obviously not succumbing to the thoughts of death, my husband and I had to be realistic. Should I lose this battle, he was going to need some help to raise my kids. So we asked my doctors if we could move to Hawaii. They thought that that was an absolutely ridiculous suicide plan. They told me that if and only if I had a clean PET scan, they would then think about signing off on me moving to Hawaii. Well, in January, I went in for my first PET scan to see where the tumor had moved, and much to everyone's absolute shock, it was 100% clean. I was cautioned to be guarded about those results. They would want to repeat it, and then if I got another clean PET scan, we could talk about Hawaii. So I did another round of chemo and some internal radiation treatments over the next 3 months, which was just absolute hell. In April, I got yet another clean PET scan, and I got to begin the progress and the process of moving my family to Hawaii. Once there, my health problems continued to linger, and that mess that I vowed to clean up just kept getting bigger and bigger. The side effects of all of that treatment were stacking up, and I felt awful. So with the help of my sister, I started to mop up the mess. I changed my diet, I did research, I took supplements, and I learned about essential oils. I was introduced to doTERRA by a friend there in Hawaii, and I fell in love with the Lifelong Vitality supplements. They absolutely changed my life. Later, I fell in love with the essential oils, and my body changed in ways that I never thought was possible. I healed myself. PET scan after PET scan came back clean, and my oncologists were absolutely shocked. They told me to keep doing whatever it was that I was doing, to keep doing it, because there was no reason that I should be alive. I began sharing my story and my results with other people, and I slowly began to realize that I absolutely loved teaching, giving back and providing hope to the hopeless. My life was spared so that I could be a mother, a wife, and a teacher. I am proud to say that I am now more than 7 years in remission, and I have no plans to go back. I am also proud to say that I will get to see these young men grow to have their own families. That is my story. They are my why.